Hey, I'm Emma Garlett and welcome to Paint It Blak. It has been a busy start to the year and there's been a flurry of activity on the best way to do business with Aboriginal people. In previous Paint It Blak episodes, I've spoken about agreement making with Indigenous people, renewable energy, native title and Indigenous land use agreements, and ESG and Indigenous people. With the whirlwind of action, more best practice guidelines have been released to outline how businesses should engage and work with Indigenous people. The guidelines pose questions to consider and are in alignment with international instruments such as the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People and the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. There are many other international instruments such as declarations, principles and conventions. One such alliance who are working to advance Indigenous interests is the First Nations Heritage Protection Alliance. The First Nations Heritage Protection Alliance is a coalition of member organisations representing First Nations people from across Australia, including major native title, land rights, traditional owner and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community-controlled organisations. The Alliance have many members from across Australia, and they've recently launched the Business and Investor Guide and Principles. This isn't the only guide, which has been pumped out in Q1 2024. There seems to be a large focus on what is best practice when working with Indigenous people and communities. And to be frank, what is deemed as best practice will always evolve and change over time. What is best practice now won't be best practice in 5 years. So it's important for companies to stay on the ball and be proactive before they're left behind. Even though these publications are just guides and they are not law, what we are seeing is the grey literature in this area increasing, as is the academic literature, and the consensus of what is deemed business as usual when working with Indigenous people, particularly where projects require land access and approvals. The bar is being raised and the standard is increasing. This means what was acceptable in the past is no longer acceptable today and in the future. Policy positions and law will follow what is normal. Adding to the mix is this. The Clean Energy Council in February released a new First Nations engagement guide for the renewables industry called Leading Principles First Nations Renewable Energy Projects. The new guide sets out its expectations for industry and details key considerations for engagement at each stage of a project's lifecycle. The guide was co-authored by the Clean Energy Council and KPMG and puts into operation all 10 of the First Nation Clean Energy Network's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander best practice principles for clean energy projects. First Nations agreement making is a heavily researched area, and now we have new guides, which are great, but the reality is these are just guides. They're not policy, nor are they law. And with the new guides being released, we want to ensure that these guides are not just another one for the bookshelf or floating in the ether. They need to be used, looked to, and included in future projects and developments. Thanks for watching Paint It Blak with me, Emma Garlett. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.